It's going to be.
Yeah.
Put it down with more panels missing.
Go.
Chinese, China made.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
But they're all China made. Most of them.
Okay, thank you. It is 7 o'clock. We are now online. I'm just going to read out a statement to begin with. In accordance with the Openness of Local Bodies Regulations 2014, this meeting is being live streamed and may otherwise be recorded, filmed or communicated on other media platforms. The recording of this meeting will be made available on the Council's YouTube channel shortly after the meeting. Both councillors and officers in attendance are reminded to make full use of and to speak clearly into the microphones available at all times. A reminder that mobile phones should be put on silent mode. Those present at the meeting should refrain from taking telephones. Okay, I'm just checking if there's any new members here. Yes, there is one, and there's one recycled one there. So we will take a time tonight so everybody understands what's going on. Okay, agenda item 1. Whatever that was.
Apologies.
Apologies.
Apology for absence was received from Councillor Hunt and Councillor Ridley.
Thank you. Any other apologies? No, thank you. Appointment of substitutes?
There were none.
Thank you. Declarations of interest with items on the agenda? Nobody? Thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting?
Move.
Seconder?
Second.
Okay, all happy with that? Samuel's not left me a copy of the minutes to sign. We'll sort those out later. Action list arising from the previous meeting? I don't think there is anything. Petitions and deputations?
There were none.
Thank you. Okay, first item on the agenda, main item, is agenda item 7, budget monitoring. Beth Bull, our officer, is joined us online, but Sal will be taking this. This is our interim 151 officer. I don't know how many have met him, but it's Sal. He will now introduce item 7. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of the report is to provide the committee with an update on the Council's draft outturn position for the General Fund, the HRA and the Capital Program 2022. Section 3 provides an update on the cost of living support proposals which were provided for the Council in November 2022. Section 4 of the report looks at the General Fund and the draft outturn position is stated to be £439,000 against the revised budgeted balance position. The overall position is broadly in line with the overall Q3 outturn, however it has increased slightly by 14,000 since that forecast. The main causes for the overspend within the year are pay inflation for implementing the National Pay Award and the reduced management fee that it receives from the Council's Leisure Centre operator. The main changes since the forecast at Q3 are reductions in overspend forecasting for planning and for refuse collection, and this has been offset by a reduction in business rates income, which has been recognised in this financial year. The main variances are provided at section 4.2 of the report. I do need to advise the committee of an amendment to section 5 of the report on the General Fund reserve balance. The repurposed balance of 1.925 million that has been quoted after the repurposing of the reserve at Q3 should actually read as 1.773 million. So it's a difference of 152,000. Section 6 of the report looks at the housing revenue accounts, and the draft outturn for the HRA is a total deficit of £119,000 compared to the original budget deficit of 50. Q4 position is better than the 294,000 deficit that was estimated at Q3. This improvement is mainly due to reduction in repairs and maintenance costs due to us being able to capitalise on some of the major volume costs. Section 7 looks at the capital programmes for the General Fund and the Housing Revenue account. and good progress has been made, although there has been some slippage identified to be carried forward into 2023-24. Appendix 1 to the report notes that the slippage is reduced by £19,000 to 774k, which is compared to 793k, which is quoted at paragraph 7.2. So on that note, Chair, I'll hand back to you and myself and colleagues to try and answer questions.
Thank you. I'll kick off. There are a couple of questions and a comment. I'm pleased that officers have listened to the committee's comments previously about the tables that begin at the bottom of page 11, where we've got an explanation against each of the variances. That's appreciated because we didn't have those before. We need to understand a little more about what's going on. My two questions relate to the first paragraph on section 2. What was the National Pay Award, to give it some context?
It was an amount of £1,995 that went to each employee.
We didn't get a percentage figure then.
We can calculate the percentage figure for the council, but it differs from authority to authority. It depends on what pay scale the individuals were at to sort of.
Okay, that's no worries. And the other main concern in that paragraph was the leisure centre reduced management fee. I really do hope that they're not going to come back in the near future and ask for any other reductions. We've been fairly accommodating with them, so I really don't want them to come back in the future. Okay, let's open it up. Any questions or comments? Councillor Hack.
Thank you, Chair. Just very quickly, I know that Sal has mentioned that two of the main pressures on our budget was due to the pay award and the reduced management fee for the leisure centre. Both of them are beyond our control for various reasons. Can I just check on page 12, we've got Revs and Bends, and in that I think there was an overspend on agency cost. Is that still going on, or can I have a bit more explanation on that item, please?
So I think in terms of the information that's been provided, additional resources would have been used to deliver the additional work that the government's imposed on the authorities around COVID grants and such like. So when they do that, they give you new burdens funding as well, generally speaking. What tends to happen is councils are resourced to deal with the day-to-day activities. Quite a lot of new demands came through to all councils. There was a high demand, generally speaking, to get good council tax or benefit staff from a Revs and Bends pool. Therefore, agency staff were used. So new burdens fund has been utilised to offset some of that overspend, and that got further in the table. And I think within the commentary in the table, it says that the Revs and Bends service restructure is concluded and recruitment to permanent positions is now complete. So it says this will mitigate the use of agency staff in the future, but some of that will depend on if any new initiatives get thrown the council's way.
Thank you. And is that the same with the page?
Microphone, please.
Is that the same on page 13 in terms of planning? Is that under control now? I know that we've recruited in our planning department as well.
The catering
Come back to
So I thought Adrian was taking that question, Chair.
Yes, Adrian.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I can confirm that in terms of planning, things are looking much better now. There was a time when we had 4 agency staff in development control. I'm pleased to say that we're now fully staffed with permanent staff. And in terms of development control officers, all of the agency staff have now left us. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Adrian. Do you want to come back, Councillor Hack?
Yes, Chair, thank you. Thanks for that, Adrian. I'm just looking for my page number for my next, it's page 14 again. In terms of, Chair, you mentioned SLM contract. I'm just going to reiterate that. I do hope that when we do our negotiations with SLM, we take everything into account in terms of what services they're providing. I know that in the last service delivery committee, it was mentioned that due to various factors, they've have received reduced income. But we need to make sure that we are robust in our negotiations and make sure that they are exploring all opportunities of increasing their income.
Mr Gill?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, yes, we are in negotiations with them at the moment, and we will be meeting with them shortly. And I will stress the fact that they do need to make sure that they're maximising their income, particularly around the function suite.
Thank you. Councillor Gore?
Thank you, Chair. I refer to section 5.3 on page 16, where we're talking about business rates pool and the fact that they are pending discussions. Do we have a timescale for the conclusions of such discussions, please?
We hope to be in a position to have some final information by the end of this week. So there's a meeting scheduled for Friday with the pool treasurers basically to see what the final outcome is.
Thank you. And will councillors be informed then the following week of the outcome of your discussions, please?
Yes, that won't be a problem, we can do that.
Thank you.
Just on that point, Sal, I have seen some documentation from County Hall. I don't know what the current structure is, but they are saying they will not accept less than a third.
That was the proposal that we discussed, a third to the districts, a third to the city, a third to the county.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Allen?
Thank you, Chair. My question is with regards to page 16, 5.1 and 5.2. Is that our audited position?
No, the audit hasn't taken place for last year yet, Councillor.
Okay. Then my follow-up question is, do we have an audited position for 2021, 21-22?
2020, 2021, the audit has been complete. That's been reported to audit committee. 21, 22, 21, 21, 2021, 21, 22 is still outstanding with the auditors. There are a number of queries that need to be addressed. That's been reported to the audit committee.
Councillor Bentley?
Thank you, Chair. Page 14, a quick query. Bottom two, but one, domestic refuse collection and recycling collection. One's a positive, due to underspending salaries and agency costs. And one's an overspend due to agency costs and salaries. Are they the same staff? Using the same lorries, doing the same round? Maybe Councillor Bolton will inform me differently.
We're not here to ask other members of the committee questions. Officers are here. Through me, I imagine they're different arms because they appear in the budget book as separate items, but Sal can probably expand.
Differentiated book is separate work streams, and I suppose we could have netted one off against the other, but for transparency, it's been reported this way, so you get the full picture.
I was just going to ask the question that doesn't one complement the other if we've got a shortfall? It's something to look at, Chair, rather than use agency staff.
I'm sure we look at it all the time, but yes, it's something that's going to come back to us soon. So, any other questions or comments on this item? Councillor Bolter?
It might be me not marine share, but I've not got appendix 1. It says to follow. Oh, hang on page 20, appendix 1, to follow.
I think there was, yeah, we've got 8.
The agenda update.
Update, yeah.
They should have access to that.
Oh, that's the one, that's the to follow one, sorry, yeah, that's all right.
Yes, it was sent as a separate item, budget monitoring Q4 22-23. Okay. Councillor Lloydell.
Thank you, Chair. Page 12, legal and admin services. I think that's congratulations there, is it not? With regards to legal cost of 25, but winning the case, or the case or the hearing was in favour of the council and recovered all the costs associated with that. So I think they did a good job there. So.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Useful. Anybody else? Okay, the recommendation is to note the report duly noted. Thank you. We now go on to agenda item 8, which is the Treasury Management Outturn Report. Are you taking this, Sal?
Yes.
Thank you.
So yes, thank you, Chair. So to recap, the Treasury Management Strategy for 2022-23 was actually approved by Council on the 24th of February 2022, so I'll go back that same way. And this included setting the financial indicators for the year 2022-23. So this report provides the committee with a summary of actual Treasury Management activity during the year and performance against financial indicators. This report is actually required to comply with both the Code of Treasury Management in local government and the Council's own Treasury Management policy statement. A reminder of Treasury Management is about the management of the Council's cash flows, borrowing and investments and their associated risks. The Council is more of a borrower than an investor. And during the year, we have continued with the strategy to manage our borrowing needs through short-term borrowing, which currently serves as better as it's more cost-effective than longer-term. The level of the borrowing has reduced by £3.6 million during the year. This is due to the repayments of long-term loans when the principal was due for repayment and a reduction in the short-term borrowing that's been held at the year end. Interest rates have risen frequently in the year. The base rate was 0.75% at the beginning of the year and 4.25% at the end of the year. Since then, there have been 2 further rises to the current rate of 5%. The committee will be pleased to know that all the prudential indicators that were approved at full council have been complied with. And on that note, Chair, I'll hand back to you, myself and colleagues, to try and answer questions.
Thank you. Before Councillor Bentley comes in, I've got 3 questions. It's on page 29 and the investments. The Thurrock one's still there. I thought that had been repaid. 2 other questions regarding that. It looks like we've invested a significant amount of money there. But is that accumulated money? I mean, I'm no financial expert, my wife will tell you. Are we investing 10 million a month, then you're investing another 10 million or the same 10 million? Because you've come up with over £100 million there. I don't quite understand how we've got that much money to invest. And does anybody invest in us?
So, the first question was paid back in September 22, the third investment.
Right, thank you.
And the second question
It's the actual amount of investment in the various organisations. I'm trying to understand.
That's a cumulative number of investments that we made during the course of the year.
Right, so it could be the same money being reinvested through the year?
Yes, theoretically, yes.
Okay. Okay, and then the final one was, does anybody invest in us? Perhaps Bev might know the answer to that, I don't know. Bev, are you there?
Yes, yeah, I am.
No, yeah.
We do, you know, some of our short-term loans are with other authorities, so we're borrowing from other authorities. But due to our cash flow at the moment, we've not got anybody investing with us.
Right, what I was probably trying to get at in a convoluted way is, have we borrowed money to invest, or is this all our money?
No, I mean, legally, we're not allowed to borrow money to reinvest, councillor. So this is money that's been sitting within our bank accounts. So it's not borrowed money that we want to reinvest. That's not, we're not able to do that.
Okay, that raises another question for another time, probably. Councillor Bentley.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to actually have the same question about for a council. I take it the other 4 councils that we have investment with, obviously we do our due diligence with them. But what sort of return do we get on that? Is there an appendix 2?
Have any idea?
No, not to hand. I'd have to get that information to you to find out what the actual rates were for each of those investments. I can provide that to all the members of the committee.
Okay, thank you, Bev. Some point down the line then, please. Any other questions, Councillor Bentley? Anybody else? Sammy. Councillor Howe.
Thank you, Chair. Just a very quick question on page 23, where it talks about interest rate. 10 years maturity is 4.3, and 20 years for some reason is more expensive than any others. And do we look at the interest rate and then decide, or do other factors come into play?
So borrowing is based on the need to borrow, and each borrowing requirement will be based on its own merits. Yes, we need to interest rates, we do take borrowing, we have advice from our treasury advisors as well. It's not just the number, we're not suggesting that's what we need, but yes, that's what's proposing to deciding the right investment strategy, which is linked to the assets or the initiatives to be invested.
Councillor Joshi.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. On page 29, I'm just a bit concerned. If we've invested our own money, is there a position whereby we can actually close those investments and claw back the investment at all, considering our financial current position?
Or would we put those other authorities in jeopardy?
These will be short-term investments and they're due the course of the year to make best use of the money that's sitting in the bank at the time. So it's to generate interest. I think within the report there's reference to the interest that was accumulated during 2022-23, which is going to be £100,000 compared to a few thousand the year before. So by moving the money around, it's in the council's interest to try and act sensibly within the money markets, so it chooses where to invest, but by prudently moving cash about, it's sort of increasing the revenue that's coming in.
Councillor Joshi.
Yes, if I can come back, thank you, Chair. I understand that completely, but at a time when we could do that, but at the moment we're not in a position where we can still keep investing, and the interest isn't huge. I mean, was that 100,000 over a few years, or was it?
During the course of last year.
Okay, so I'm just thinking, are we still obliged to carry on investing in all of those 5 councils, or can we pull some money back out?
I'm not sure what the exact position is right at 27th of June, but we will have an updated position coming forward for the end of quarter one. So as soon as we have that information to hand, we'll see what the position was. But as these are short-term investments, the team look at the best rate of investment for that short period, and some of that demonstrated in the next reports.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bentley.
Thank you, Chair. Just for clarity, so that I can understand what Councillor Joshi was actually asking. This money is sitting with the council. It is not spare money. It is money that's already allotted for services or other things. So it's not money that we can just suddenly claw back and say, we've got 11 million from Cornwall Council, let's see what we can do with it. It's just money that's sitting in the bank. So we can temporarily invest it to get as much interest, but that money is already allocated.
Your short-term investments, and I have been assured by my colleague that all the investments have expired, so we've got them back.
Good.
Yes.
Sorry, just to repeat that, so all those short-term investments have now expired.
That's right. That's right.
So where is that money sitting?
Maybe some different investments now. Maybe it's gone to pre-sectors.
I get Councillor Josh's point. You know, our reserves are running low. If we were just to sort of pull in £1 million, say, and use it for our reserves or otherwise to make our financial position look a bit healthier, why? I'm probably being very naive here, but why don't we do that?
If you had the money coming into our account, we would put it somewhere, either in a bank, where we might get low interest, or we'd invest it in the short term on these other investments, so we can maximise the income we get from interest, basically. So that improves our liquidity and our financial position overall.
Yeah, I'm going to come to Councillor Hack next.
Thank you, Chair. As I understand it, it's the money that's allocated to different departments, and if we receive government funding, for example, if we receive £500,000 and that's sitting there, we're not using it for another couple of months, we invest it short term into something where when we need it, we can claw it back. It's not our money sometimes. So it's not the money that can sit in reserves. It's not the money that is permanently there. It's the money that comes in, goes out, and to maximise our income, we invest it into short-term investments. That's how I understand. And the question I wanted to ask, that who decides where that money is invested? I just wanted to ask that question because do we take the maximum benefit? I know the interest rate is going up now, so do we maximise on that higher interest rate?
So we set the treasury management strategy and we set the NTFP, so January 2023. That gives us the rules for investing. So there are principles to work towards, and the first one is always safely, making sure that they get the money back. The head of finance will make the decision on where the money goes based on this is quite routine business transactional activity within the finance department. So it is complex. So it's not something that a junior will do, but it's not something that comes up to members to make that decision. Members set the policy framework and then see what within it. And it's at the end, saying all our credential indicators.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bev wanted to come in. Bev?
To be fair, Councillor Hacker thinks Cara is sort of said the point that I was going to make, just that in terms of the investments that we make, it is to manage our cash flow. So it is about managing that money coming in and money going out. And we always, in the investments we make, all those ones that have been reported, ones that we've done throughout the year, so they're not done at one time, they're done at various points in the year. And we always assess the cash flow and work out how long we can put that money into an investment for, so that it then comes back. So we've got it when we need to manage the cash flow and make the payments going out.
Okay, thank you, Bev. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Chair. I just need to just clear up my thoughts slightly, just to understand this. So what we're saying is we have borrowed money, a certain amount of money, rather than keeping it in our account, we then reinvested it into authority.
We're not able to borrow money for the purposes of investment.
tax money.
It's council tax and business rates and all of that,
We borrow money for capital programs usually.
even if we get money from other people, it's in there.
So then we reinvest that money in other authorities,
Not money that we've borrowed.
not money, but money that we've got in our account.
Yes, so if we collect council tax as an example on behalf of the council and fire authorities, so for a period of time that sits in our bank before before they're called for it. So whilst it's sitting there, if we've got a good collection run, the staff will look at what's the best sort of investment opportunities there are. So it could be one going for, it could be 3 weeks, and they will look at pushing that money out in line with our cash flow requirements.
Okay, so when you put these money, when you give this money to other authorities and you're investing, what are you exactly investing in then? Because is it like a loan that you're giving them, or are you investing in their infrastructure to get that money back? How do you get that money back?
We're just using them to put the money into. They're using that money for their own purposes. Then we take the return that they've quoted for us.
You get the returns from on what?
They've quoted.
So basically, it's a short-term loan. The length is determined and the interest rate, and it's then paid back with that interest rate. Thank you. Councillor Bolter.
Thanks, Chair. I noticed on page 23, this table 2, I noticed that one of the loans is not due back until September. One's January and one's February next year. So they're all going to be come back by the end of the financial year. Is that correct? And the average rate, according to this, the long term is 2.98. That's fine. And the interest rates are down there. So I don't think there's any problem. It's a good idea to invest what spare money we've got to get the maximum amount of interest for it. And we heard it's paid quite a lot of dividends this year, bringing money in. And I can see no problem with that. I mean, I had this argument in another forum about loaning to other local authorities. And I'm assured by the experts that local authorities are usually a safe investment. Number of AAA rated people now is very limited. Some of the well-known banks are not now recommended to loan to. So people to loan to is reducing, shall I say. So to loan to another council is usually quite a good thing. One question I do want to know, what do you class as short term? 6 months? Is that a short term loan? Normally?
Could be.
Yeah.
There's various options that are available on the money markets.
Yeah.
So it could be a month, it could be on call, it could be 6 months, it could be up to 12 months. It depends on.
But if it's on call, you get lesser interest rate. Yeah.
Okay, the recommendation is to note the report, duly noted. Okay, thank you. Agenda item 9, which is the budget book. This first appeared in a member's bulletin some time ago, and it was at my request that it comes before this committee. I could probably spend the rest of the evening and most of tomorrow morning talking about this. I won't. I shall restrain myself and I shall let others go first if they have any questions or comments. Is there anybody? Councillor Bentley.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to spend very long on this because, as you say, we could go through this line by line and be here for the next couple of days. My main concern is, as a council, we have a duty to set a budget, and every year we set a budget. And there are factors that come along that can either decrease or increase that budget. My just basic question is, I see various things throughout this budget book that suddenly appear, like £10,000 in training costs. It wasn't in the previous budgets. Where are they authorised from? When we set the budget as a council, we would normally expect that budget to be adhered to, unless there were exceptional circumstances. But if you look through the whole of this document, there are variances all over the place. And then in other parts, there are no variances whatsoever. So I just can't understand that factors like increased cost of fuel, increased cost of labour, materials, affect some parts of the budget, but have absolutely no effect on other parts of the budget. And suddenly you get a 10 grand drop in there. My main concern is that all of these little increases, and there never seem to be many decreases, adds up to a massive amount. And then suddenly we've got £450,000 that we've got to find in the financial year. I just find it very concerning, and it is something we're looking at. It is something we're working on. And I don't expect anybody to really answer the question, but it is a concern of mine that if we set a budget as a council, it can just suddenly be thrown out the window and come up with a figure, and that's what we've got to work with. Thank you.
Nobody's looking to answer that, so it's probably a comment. Councillor Bolter.
Thank you, Chair. As you say, you know, I could spend all night on this. It's interesting reading, isn't it? Things appear in one budget and appear in another budget, and you know, not all together. But one thing I'm interested in is the mobile phones. Can't quite understand how we can get on page 39 £40,000 for mobile phones. You know, it seems an awful lot of money that just for a mobile phone. I mean, it's a penny these days. They're not expensive like they were 20 years ago. Unless we're going for the high-tech, you know, super-duper phones. So I'd like somebody to do an investigation about mobile phones, please, that we're using this authority. That's one thing. I won't go on about computer software because that winds me up, so I'm not going about that. Other things like grounds maintenance on page 97, it was £203,000, it's now 298. No explanation as far as I can find on here, other than there's a pay award, yes, but that's common throughout all the stuff in.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Councillor Bolter, but it does say in the report that any questions raised tonight will not be answered tonight.
Yes.
Officers will come back to us.
I don't expect an answer tonight, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
That's just a couple of things, but, you know, I don't go on forever. I'm sure someone's going to ask a question about homelessness, and that's another one that needs a detailed explanation on. But, you know, apart from that, there's a lot of things down here that need a bit of explanation. So I think we need to look at this on a separate occasion, very scrutinising every penny. Just looking down here, I think there's some savings here to be made. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Noble.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I don't expect the answer, as you quite rightly say, but I think we need to focus on page 38. I'll only talk about the top figures, which identifies each service heading. If you look on the left-hand side, obviously there's a 22, 23. We start off at one figure, there's a revised budget, it goes up. Then we look at the outturn at the very end, it's overspent. And each one, as you go down, is massively overspent. There's only one that's well-being that's doing right. So the question is, of course, for the future is how are you going to bring that on on target, how are you going to make sure that what you've budgeted for is the same figure at the end? I think we need to be very careful as we go forward and make sure that at the end figures tie in with what we budgeted for in the first place. And it's already been alluded to, we're going to scrutinise this right down to the last penny and work with you to ensure that we can do that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Joshi.
Thank you, Chair. I've just got two items that I just wanted some clarification as to when we can get that. Page 98, basically what does the payment to LCC, the Travellers Unit, represent? 4,400 and 5,500. And then the health development project of 4,000. I wasn't aware of any of that, so at some stage it would be good to know what these mini projects are, please.
Mr. Gill might answer the first one.
Thank you, Chair. The first part is a payment to the multi-agency travelling unit, which is a county-wide arrangement that deals with unauthorised encampments across council land. So when we had the encampment up at Oadby, and then it went to Parklands, and then it went elsewhere, that was all dealt with by MATU at no expense to this council, and they deal with everything. Other than that one payment, that's all it is.
Thank you. Councillor Gore.
Thank you, Chair. When we get explanations in due course, could they include, please, on page 125, homelessness, where there have been considerable increases in salaries, emergency accommodation, offset by housing benefit payments. But the net cost of service in the current budget is significantly increased from the previous year. So, explanation. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Anybody else? Councillor Hack.
Thank you, Chair. I think one of my questions has been already asked around the homelessness. The other one I was just going to mention, I know we've taken our ICT in-house. So in terms of telephones, contracts, mobile phones, and we look at the modern way of communicating and see if some of those services and contracts are needed, and just review all of that. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I mean, like I say, I've got a myriad of questions. I'll submit them as and when after this meeting. I'm not going to waste the meeting's time on them. There are various things like licences. I know there are catteries and boarding kennels in the borough, but we collect no income whatsoever from them. And we're not very good at collecting other income. And I know that we're working on that, and I'm hoping that comes to fruition sooner rather than later. I have criticisms of the budget books. I've gone back 3 years with them. Sad individual that I am. And I've looked at them, and there appears to be, and officers at some point down the line can tell me I'm wrong, that numbers are just being rolled over automatically from financial year to financial year. That to me is lazy and should not happen. Every budget line should be checked and deemed appropriate. If officers come back to me and say I'm incorrect, then I will apologise for that. But it's clear that some budget lines have stayed the same year after year after year when there should be variances in them. And my other question is, query, budget books need to be exactly the same format year after year after year. Moving lines about and having different formats is not acceptable. If there's a set of lines and a box, it should be the same for the following year, unless we are told otherwise. And my one other criticism is, and again, I may be misinterpreting this, when the budget for a particular year is announced, 22-23, say, then it should be the same from the previous year's out-term budget. And in most cases, they are. And I've been through them all for the past 4 years. And you look at legal and governance, and what the outturned budget is, 165,000. And it shows the original budget for that year in the next year as the same. And that's how it should be. But some have changed dramatically. That is wrong. Even for somebody like me who's not financially astute, that is wrong. Whether anybody's got an explanation for that tonight, I don't know. If officers don't understand what I'm saying, I can be clearer, hopefully. You know, when a budget of 21-22 says final revised budget, that should be the budget in the next set of papers for that previous year. You cannot change that, I would have thought. But if anybody wants to answer now, great. If they don't, I'll let it go until a later date. Councillor Bentley.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one. We all realise that this is one of the most important documents for this council because it's our expenditure. Everybody's alluded to the fact that it seems to change when it's already been set. And we've already alluded to the fact that we could go through this line by line and it will take an awful long time. But we may need to do that. And I just think it's a thought that maybe rather than have a full committee meeting on such a thing, we have a working group to look at the budget book, both before it's set and after it's set, so that we can understand it a little bit better and it's our budget and have more control over it. I don't know what the leader's view on this is, or your view as committee chair, but I just think it's something that should be looked at in more detail.
Well, to just let it sit in the members' bulletin to me was not acceptable, which is why I've asked for it to come here. The appropriate mechanism for looking at it in detail, Sal, your experience 151 officer, should it come to this committee, audit committee, or should it have some separate scrutiny?
So my understanding is that the budget book is basically the detail that underpins the OTFP, the budget that then was approved in February. So those figures should tally. If what you're saying is that you haven't discussed some of the detail within that budget setting, that's probably something we can do in the build up to the budget as it's been set. But there is a due process that we go through. So those figures should tally to the NTFP and the revenue budget that was set and members approved.
Thank you for that. Okay, I think all the questions have been noted and... Sorry, Councillor Bolton?
Two, please. Just two questions to officers to look at. One is the cleaning contract. Which I didn't know we'd got one. 197 to 227. The other one is the development of a bid company. 37,000. How did that come to members?
Sorry, could you just repeat what that was? What company?
Development of a bid company. Page 134. I can't remember it coming to a committee.
Okay, thank you for that. Like I say, all these questions will... Councillor Hack.
Thank you, Chair. Just very quickly, coming back to Councillor Bentley's point, I think it was one of the peer review LGA's recommendation that we have early discussions with members before the budget setting, and I think we have got a meeting planned to discuss the budget book and to set the budget in late September.
First meeting on financial sustainability July, so we start talking activities to for the next some meetings we scheduled for August and for September as we move forward, and then we can look at scheduling more.
So all that can be discussed in that. Thank you, that's all I wanted to confirm.
Okay, anybody else? Councillor Lloydall?
Just one thing, what Councillor Bolt has said, I think it's important we do get information with regards to that cleaning contract. It did come through committee at one point, and we made some strong, very strong recommendations. And it was going to go away, and they were going to talk about it and bring it back. The contract has been let without it coming back to committee. I think that's a serious issue that needs to be looked at privately. Thank you.
Okay, the recommendations to note the report, duly noted it. Moved it forward, thank you for that. Right, we now go on to agenda item 10, the anti-fraud and corruption policy. Mr Gill.
I believe it's Bev, actually.
Oh, sorry, Bev.
Oh, there was
I'll take this, Chair.
Sal.
any advance?
As a council, we're required to have in place a policy which sets out our approach to preventing, detecting, and investigating fraud, bribery and corruption. So this is basically our anti-fraud and corruption policy. So the policy must be periodically reviewed and updated for changes in line with best practice. And our latest review has resulted in a number of changes. So there's a section detailing types of sanctions that could be taken, including different types of criminal and civil redress that the council could pursue. And this is in line with fighting fraud and corruption guidelines in 2020. And we've also included some appendices outlining the reporting procedures for employees, elected members, members of the public for ease of reference. On that note, Chair, I'll hand back to you and myself and colleagues will try and answer your questions.
Thank you, Sal. Any questions? None? Councillor Joshi, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. I'd raised this a while ago on the planning committee. There was something that came up for a planning. Now, I don't know whether it's appropriate to have it in a policy or not, but basically it's to find out the backgrounds and do due diligence and sort of company's house checks on developers who want to change of uses of whatever they want to do, homes, etc., etc. And I always dig a little bit deeper into their backgrounds because I want to make sure that there isn't anything untoward going on, like money laundering, etc. So would that be appropriate to have something similar in the policy as such or not?
Mr Gill.
Thank you, Chair. It wouldn't be appropriate because when you're considering a planning application, you are not considering the applicant or their propriety. But it goes something like this. If one of the members here was to put a planning application in for his own property, we wouldn't dig into that member's background. So there's no reason that he should be doing that in a planning application because it belongs to a company.
Councillor Hack.
Thanks, Chair. Just wanted to confirm that this fit under the whistleblower policy and if we suspect any kind of suspicious activity, do we make sure that we go all the way to recover our costs and investigate it thoroughly?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, there are a number of policies that sit together. There's a whistleblowing policy, there's the fraud and anti-corruption policy. They all build around the Bribery Act and along with the money laundering regulations. So yes, if something comes to us and we are alerted to potential for money laundering, for instance, there is a set process which we have to go through. That would go off to the National Crime Agency, where we identify the potential for a fraud against the authority. We will investigate it thoroughly or report the matter to the police, depending on the circumstances, and we will seek to recover any money that has been fraudulently obtained from the council, and also all of the costs that arise from any investigation and subsequent prosecution.
Councillor Lloydall.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome the policy and the comments that Mr Gill has already made, in that if anything has been found to be fraudulent, and that we will take action and to its penalty degree, because one of the things that the audit, external auditor picked up was the efficacy and how good the anti-fraud and corruption policy is, and they found no gaps in that, and they actually praised the fact that it's works and it's working. But I think the principle of it is that you will, if it's found, deal with it robustly with no holds barred. There is a cost, obviously, but we want to make sure that our systems are in place which will tackle that, and no uncertain terms go to it with a rigorous approach and make sure those who are committing those frauds are dealt with properly and promptly.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Right, there's just a couple of queries. Page, glasses on. 158. It's the second paragraph. Not sure I read that correctly. Elected members of the public and external organisations. Elected members of the public. It's the second one on page 158.
Second paragraph.
I think it's a matter of punctuation. Elected members, and it should say members of the public, along with everybody else, have roles and responsibilities. So it's just a slight grammatical error.
Okay. As you can tell, I've taken on Councillor Helen Lloydell's role in
being the grammar police.
Being the grammar police, because then I go to page 169, the first paragraph in the heading, the corporate register. Officers assigned to investigate these allegations must ensure that he, they, it, she, the risk of being wokish. Mr. Gill.
Duly noted, Chairman, and I will do my lines afterwards.
Thank you. Okay, no other comments. The recommendation is that we approve this. I will move it. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Lloydell. All those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. Thank you. We now go to agenda item 11. This is the standard quarterly report on standards and ethical indicators. Mr. Gill.
Thank you, Chairman. The report, as you say, is a standard quarterly report. It provides information related to complaints, corporate and ombudsman complaints, freedom of information requests and antisocial behaviour reports and resolutions. The purpose of the report is to comply with the requirements of the Regulation of Investigative Powers Act, where we have to report to members any activity that is undertaken with regard to RIPA and with regard to any surveillance powers. Looking at the report, the first part sets out member complaints, and the second part sets out the KPIs and the indicators. So in quarter three, there was one complaint outstanding which remained at the time of the last report, and then I received a further complaint in quarter four. Neither of the complaints were considered to warrant an investigation, and no further action was taken. Happy to take any questions on the report, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Gill. Anybody got questions or comments on this?
Move report.
Not quite yet. Did you raise your hand, Councillor Hack?
I did.
Thank you.
Chair, very quickly, I just wanted to ask, I don't know whether that sits in this report, do we publish any freedom of information requests regarding any complaints or?
Just bear with me, isn't this somewhere? There is a section on page 182, Councillor Hack, which sets out the number of corporate complaints that have been received in each quarter, and also whether they progress from level 1 to level 2, and also whether they progress further to the Ombudsman.
I think what Councillor Hack is asking is what my question was going to be and what my request was going to be. County Council publish on their website a full list of all FOIs and the response and whether they've been resolved or not. Is it possible, looking at the number of FOIs that we receive, we can do anything similar on our website?
We have considered that in the past, Chair, and we could do it, but there is a cost to it because we would have to buy software that would enable the transition from the request in to the website. We did look at doing it on a Excel spreadsheet, but the amount of effort involved in doing it would be considerable. So if members were minded to go down that route, then yes, but I'm afraid you'd have to find some money from somewhere because we don't have a budget for the software.
Would it be onerous to find out the costs, Mr Gill?
We can certainly make enquiries for you, Chair, to find out what the cost is and if necessary, following discussion, submit a supplementary budget for it to be undertaken.
Thank you. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question on page 182. Where it talks about corporate complaints where compensation was paid. Quarter one, you've got one, quarter two, you've got two. I was just wondering, was that a financial compensation, or was that compensation or something else?
Generally, when it is compensation, it would be a financial payment to offset any distress or other issues that have arisen. Certainly with regard to the housing was in respect of a disrepair claim. Where you have a disrepair claim, there's a period of negotiation. You have a choice, you can either settle the matter or end up in court. And if sometimes it is more cost effective and business-like to make a payment to settle the matter rather than go to court and run the risk of losing costs.
If I can just come back, will we be able to know, Chair, how much that was?
We can make it available to members outside of the meeting, but it's not information that I would want to put in the public domain. It's a private arrangement between the complainant and the council to resolve the matter.
I would have hoped that members were made aware of these settlements. If, as you say, under GDPR, it's an exempt item, but even so, I think members should be made aware. Again, to be boring, County Council tell you of any settlements they've made in terms of education or other problems where they've had to pay compensation. They're very transparent about it. I would like us to be the same, please, Mr Gill.
It certainly will do where it's a complaint that has come via the Ombudsman, because we are actually required to publish that. But sometimes with other complaints, it becomes a little bit pointless where Mrs A received X amount from because of something and you can't describe the whole event. It loses any real purpose sometimes, but we'll certainly look at it for you, Councillor.
Thank you. Councillor Joshi.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Just two things. Page 182, what is the nature of corporate complaints? And is there any reason why they were increasing from quarter one to quarter four? I know that they've actually been escalated and been resolved, but I just want to know what sort of the nature of them and why they went up. Is there any reason?
There's a whole range of reasons as why people make complaints. I mean, the fact it's called a corporate complaint is because in the first instance, what we will try and do via customer services and other offices is we'll triage the complaints and try and make sure that we can resolve it. So if somebody's annoyed because they missed an appointment, we apologise to them and sometimes that will resolve it. Often the complaints that we get are because people perceive that we are not doing what they want us to do. But the bottom line is if we can't do what they want to do, then we can't do what they want to do. And we're never going to please them. So the way that it works is you get your triaging at the bottom by officers, then it will become a formal complaint, i.e. a corporate complaint, which is then investigated by a manager, and the manager will respond. If people are not happy, it then becomes a second stage, an escalation to level 2. That then is normally investigated by another manager who's not connected or a head of service, and ultimately it can go to the Ombudsman. Without looking at the nature of the complaints, it's a bit difficult to tell you what those complaints are. You know, and complaints do fluctuate. We did introduce the triaging through the middle of last year and build on it, and that's why you can see the drop in the number of complaints. But if people want to complain, people will complain.
I think, without wishing to put words in your mouth, Councillor Joshi, I think you're trying to establish what sort of complaints are coming through. Is it bins not being emptied? Is it litter bins not being emptied? Is it
we can provide that.
Car parking issues, those sorts of things?
I think it'd be important for us as members to know this sort of information.
Agreed.
Fisher's going to join in.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Just to remind members that in the Service Delivery Committee we do a 6-monthly biannual complaints report. That does actually report in quite a lot of detail and breaks down complaints into different types, categories, etc. And it is quite a transparent report. And we don't just report on the stage 1 complaints, we actually report on the ones that we do resolve at early point of contact, recognising that although they don't go down the formal process, they are still perhaps lessons we can learn from those. So, you know, again, we could make that available to everybody, maybe by the members' hub, but it is certainly discussed at Service Delivery Committee every 6 months.
No, thank you for that, and that would be, Chair, that would be perfect actually, just a précis or a table format of what the complaint was, how many, It's just simple. Thank you.
Yes, that would be very useful. And just a quick one while we've got Trish here. If I was to ring up and say I've got a complaint about the bins being left in the wrong place, and I'd actually use the word complaint, would you register that as a complaint?
We would discuss the issue with the customer, and we would. Sometimes people will use the word complaint, but actually their intention is maybe just for you to resolve the issue. So we would never shy away from it if they wanted to make a complaint, but we would offer to try and resolve it as clearly as possible. And sometimes people will, for example, a missed bin, for example, they may want to complain their bin had been missed. However, when you look on the system, the officer may be able to see that they didn't leave their bin out on time. So that wouldn't be an appropriate complaint. So it is very much a discussion between the officer and the customer and an agreement reached.
Okay, thank you. Right, I think we've done this one. The recommendation is that we note the content of the report. That's done, thank you. Right, we now go on to agenda item 12. I need to read out a statement. Exclusion of the press and public. Resolved that under section 100A brackets 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the press and public now be excluded from the remainder of the meeting on the grounds that the business to be transacted involves the disclosure of exempt information as defined in Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act as amended, and in all the circumstances, the public interest in maintaining the exempt item outweighs the public interest in disclosing the exempt information. Will you please stop the live stream?